Well, hello everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of Movie Passion. And in today's video, I want to take a closer look at the Zero Theorem, which is not only a science fiction movie, but it's also a dystopia. And this is something that I always find very interesting. So, what is this movie all about? Basically, this movie is about this guy, Cohen Lev. He is working for a company named Mancom as an entity cruncher. And because he has a lot of various different fears and phobias, and also because he's waiting for some kind of an important phone call, he wants to be reassigned to work at home, and he's getting his wish granted. He's getting new equipment to work at home, and he has to work on a special project called the Zero Theorem, which basically means that he has to crunch entities in order to prove that all is for nothing, that life is for nothing, that there is no greater purpose to life, because in the end, everything, including the universe itself, will cease to exist, and therefore nothing actually really matters. So, this is like the basic gist of the movie, but as you can tell from the length of this video, there is definitely a lot more stuff to talk about. So, first, let's start talking about Cohen Lev. I mean, I already said that he has a lot of various different fears, but there are a lot of other things about this person. For example, he lost his entire body hair, and it's never really been explained why that is, if it's due to stress or some kind of a sickness or whatever it is, it's never really been explained. Also, ever since he was younger, he always wanted to be unique and special and different from everybody else. But as he grew older, he realized that he isn't different, he isn't special, he's just like everybody else. He's one in many. And this probably also caused his depression and a lot of his fears. And this brings us to the phone call that he is waiting for. You see, there was one time where he received a phone call, and the person on the other end said his name. The person said Cohen Lev, and for whatever reason, he felt this feeling of joy and awe and whatever. And he thought, if he would only say yes in order to confirm that he is Cohen Lev, he believed that this person or this voice would tell him his meaning, his purpose in life. But in his excitement, he dropped the receiver and got disconnected, and he's been waiting for a call back ever since then. So yeah, it's some kind of a weird delusion that he has. But the thing is, I think he is already special in a way. I mean, not only has he lost all his body hair, but he is also living in some kind of an abandoned church. I think he bought this church from some kind of an insurance company. And sure, it looks like a cool place to live, but I wouldn't want to live in a place like this because, especially in the winter time, it gets really, really cold. I mean, churches don't have ovens or radiators and stuff like this. And, in this church, we can see that there are holes in the roof. We can see that there is snow inside. So I don't really want to know how cold it is. It might be a cool place during the summertime, but during the winter time, no, definitely not. So this brings us to the next point, the company Mancom that Cohen is working for. it's never really been established what this company does, or it's never been explained. They only say something about life is too complicated and there are a lot of decisions, a lot of choices. And the boss of this company, that everybody only calls management, he also says that there is money in ordering disorder. So, my guess is that this company is making decisions for you so that you pay this company and ask this company some questions, and then this company is giving you answers like, okay, should I buy a pet? What kind of a pet should I buy? What kind of a house should I live in? And all those kinds of things. We can also see before Cohen was assigned to work on the zero theorem, when he was still working, at his workplace, he was working on lifestyle. This was his subject that he was working on. I don't know what other subjects there might have been, maybe work and relationships and stuff like that. But yeah, it's actually quite disturbing when you think about it, because yes, we already live in a world like this, kind of. I mean, we have dating apps that are showing us suggestions, what kind of people are the perfect match for us. And we also have websites that work with algorithms that are showing us or suggesting various different videos and topics and postings. So, yeah, we are already being kind of manipulated. And then there is also all those ads and commercials telling us what to buy and how to live. And yeah, it's pretty weird when you think about it. I mean, everybody wants to be unique and special, but at the same time, we are not really that special from one another. I mean, who is really living a unique life? Who is really special or so much different than everybody else? There is this German comedian that said something about individuality as a mass phenomenon. So everybody wants to be an individual, but everybody does the same things to be an individual, and thus we are no longer really individuals in a way. And yeah, when you look at all the commercials, and also when you look at social media and things like Instagram, you can tell that we are already kind of living our lives the way those companies want us to, because we think that this is what we have to in order to fit in. Because, social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and whatsoever, they are only popular and so successful because people want to blend in. People don't want to be individuals, they want to blend in, they want to be part of this. They don't want to be left out, they don't want to be outsiders. So yeah, it's kind of weird when everybody talks about individuality, but in this at the same time, hardly anybody is really individual. So now let's talk about all those little hidden details that we can find in this movie. Some of which I understand, some of them I don't understand. For example, we can see when there's this bus coming, it's kind of like this red bus that you normally see in London. We can see that there is a picture on the front of the bus, and the picture almost looks like Boris Johnson. And then it says, "It's your human right, drive on the right." This is something that I don't understand. I mean, maybe somebody of you can explain it to me, but I don't really understand what it means. If it's supposed to be a joke or a hint at something or a reference to something, I really don't get it. I don't understand this. another thing that we can see is there are obviously a lot of posters, a lot of stickers everywhere, and one sticker says, enough is never enough. You should always request more. Now, this is apparently criticizing consumerism and also capitalism, and the fact that capitalism is a growth oriented system. This is something that is not going to work much longer due to the limits of growth. There has been, I think, this book, The Limits of Growth, and this book was published by Club of Rome, I think somewhere during the 1970s, so like 50 years ago. 50 years ago, people already knew that a growth oriented system wouldn't work indefinitely. I think that's the word. So infinite growth is impossible due to the limits of growth. And you also have to think about the way things are and the way we live. I mean, all the natural resources on this planet are limited, and the number of people that have to live off those resources keeps increasing. And as if that wouldn't be bad enough, we become more and more wasteful as time goes on because we have to generate growth, and companies, they have to gain profit. So we're not just using more resources, we are actually wasting more resources because we are throwing brand new things away in order to make room for even newer things. And we also create artificial demands and stuff like this. And yeah, it's not going to work that much longer, especially not when you think about the fact that poor countries, they try to get the same life standard that we have, which is absolutely impossible. It's impossible for everybody in the world to have the same amount of stuff. So yeah, it's not going to work that much. I think 1% of the entire population in the world has just as much as the rest of the 99%, which is absolutely crazy when you think about this. So yeah, this is one thing that it's criticizing. I mean, the thing is, instead of producing a certain amount, like the same amount that is really needed, we produce just as much as possible in order to make as much money as possible. So it's no longer the requirement or the need that determines how much we have to produce. It's the amount of money that we have to make that determines how much we have to produce, which is absolutely crazy. And also, just think about it. We live in a world or in a system that is only being held up by consumerism. I mean, if we would only purchase the things that we really need, like really essential stuff, then the whole system would collapse because we wouldn't spend enough money to keep the system going. We are forced to spend a certain amount of money to keep the system going, which is absolutely ridiculous, because if we would consume less, it would be a very beautiful thing for the environment. We would waste less resources, we would produce less CO2, we would produce less garbage, we would have to work a lot less. It would be a totally beautiful thing, but it would be really bad and crippling for the system that we built. And this shows you that it can't be a good system if something that is actually good turns into something bad. So yeah, that's one thing that it's criticizing. Then we can also see a commercial about everybody getting rich except you. Now, this is also another thing that is being criticized. Many people still think that being rich would be a good thing, that it's something that you should aim for, kind of. but it's actually a very bad and very antisocial thing because there is only a limited amount of money available that we all have to live from. And, if something is limited, like the amount of money, it means that somebody can only have more of that if somebody else has less. So the way how the whole system, the whole money system works is that rich people can only be rich if others are poor. And this is also why I don't like rich people, because they sit on their money and nobody can do anything with that money. That money can't be used for anything productive. It can't be used to help other people. And when, for example, look at Germany, where I live. Germany is actually a very rich country, but the vast majority doesn't really feel that. They don't really profit from that because the money is the way how the money is supplied, it's very uneven. I think the richest 10% in this country own 67% of all the wealth, which is absolutely crazy when you think about this. And for some reason, people still believe that poor people, the people that get financial aid, that they are a problem or a burden or something like this, which is absolutely ridiculous. When you think about the fact that the amount of money is limited, how can people that own little to no money be a burden, or how can they be a problem if all the money is still available for everybody else? It kind of makes no sense. And then we can also see that apparently there are new religions that came up. We can see this commercial for this guy called Batman. I don't know why he calls himself that, but you can also see that there is a QR code, and this is actually the only QR code that is visible enough so that you can actually scan that QR code. It actually works. And if you scan that QR code, it reads, Batman is the new Messiah. So that's another interesting thing. And then there are also a lot of interesting things at Mancom, the company where Cohen used to work, or that Cohen is working for. For example, at his workplace, or quote unquote cubicle, we can see that there is this little note on the sign on the side that says, please keep away strong odors from elevator area, risk of suffocation. And I think a warning like this should be written on every public elevator everywhere in the world. Yeah, that's one thing. And then we can also see posters of management, and underneath it says everything is under control. So this is also something kind of like Big Brother like. So we can see in the movie that management has also cameras basically everywhere, not just inside the company, but also at Cohen's place where he lives. I don't know if they installed those cameras when they brought the new equipment, or if they have always been there, if they are always keeping an eye on their employees, even in their private homes. I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of a reference to Big Brother and George Orwell's 1984, and this whole surveillance state kind of thing. Then there is this other thing. We can see that there is this digital banner that sometimes shows stock numbers and stuff like that. But there is one time where it also says, don't ask, multitask. And this is also criticizing the way how we work and the way how we live. The fact that we are being taught to do our job and don't ask any questions. You should not question anything. You should do your job and do what you do what you got to do, or you have to do what you have to do. And this is also something that applies to Cohen. You see, he has been multitasking basically all, well, I don't know if you should call it multitasking, but he has been working quite a lot. He has been working really, really hard on the zero theorem. I mean, there is a point where we can see that he becomes, or he turns into this nervous wreck. I mean, he's dropping his food because he's so nervous, and we can also see that he started scratching himself, and he started scratching himself so badly that we can see that he's bleeding, or maybe he has also some kind of a rash. So yeah, he's working really hard, and at the same time he never really bothered to ask what exactly it is that he is working on. I mean, yes, there has been this one time where he asked what exactly it is that he's supposed to prove, and his supervisor only said something like, that management is getting desperate. So yeah, he asked an honest question, but he didn't get an honest response. But yeah, he never really thought about what the zero theorem is, or what exactly he has to prove. And then management's son explains to him what the zero theorem is, that basically it means all is for nothing, because there will be a point where everything, including the universe, will cease to exist. And then Cohen says, how can anybody believe such a terrible thing? So this shows you a very interesting thing, because here you have this person, Cohen, that has been working for over a year on something that he doesn't like, or that goes against his own belief, because he didn't bother to ask, because he just did his job. And then there is another very disturbing thing, because after showing don't ask, multitask, it shows another very disturbing thing, because then the banner says Arbeit macht Fun. Now, this is obviously a mix between German words and English. So basically, if you translate this all into English, it means that work is fun, kind of. But this is a direct reference to Auschwitz and the Second World War and the Holocaust. You see, Auschwitz used to be a concentration camp during the Second World War, and it's estimated that over those 5 years that it has been active, that something like 1.1 million people perished in Auschwitz. Most of which were Jews. So yeah, that's a pretty dark and disturbing thing. And at the front gates of Auschwitz, it says Arbeit macht frei, which basically means work makes you free. So they just replaced the German word frei with the English word fun. So yeah, this also, I don't know if it's supposed to criticize dictatorships, or if it's supposed to tell us that they are living in some kind of a dictatorship. But yeah, it's kind of a very interesting but also very disturbing thing. So last but not least, let's talk about the zero theorem itself. So I already said that basically it means that there will be a point where the universe will, I don't know, kind of crunch together, like the big crunch, because right now I think the universe is expanding, and I think some people believe that there will be a point where it starts shrinking again, and that time would go backwards. You know, this is something that I talked about in another video or movie review of Mr. Nobody. But yeah, the zero theorem means that in the end everything will cease to exist, including universe itself. I mean, we know that life on Earth will eventually cease to exist, because there will be a time in a couple of million years or so where the sun will expand and become like this red giant or something like this. I don't know if it's a red giant, but yeah, the sun will get bigger and bigger, and therefore the temperatures on Earth will be so high that the oceans will start to boil and everything. So, yeah, life on Earth will definitely end at one point. I don't know if I should believe that we will have inhabited some other planets at this point, but yeah, life on Earth will definitely end, and eventually the universe will cease to exist. So the question is, why did management decide to let Cohen work on the zero theorem? Well, at the end of the movie, management says that the saddest aspect of mankind's need to believe in a God, or to put it in other words, a purpose greater than this life, is that it renders this life meaningless, because they see it all as a waste station on their road to some kind of a promised eternity. And this is the reason why he chose Cohen for this project, because Cohen is a man of faith. He persistently believed that a phone call would give his life meaning. He waited and waited, and because of that, he led a meaningless life. And in a way, I do have to say that I believe the things that management says, or I agree with management on the point where if you believe that there will be some kind of an eternity after you die, I mean, how important can our life be if you live, let's say, 85 years, but afterwards there will be an eternity that you can spend in heaven or something like this? 85 years compared to an eternity is nothing. So if you believe in the concept of heaven and hell, it means that you believe that life is just a test to figure out whether or not you are a good person. And the same thing goes for reincarnation and nirvana and all those things. And yeah, I don't believe that life is just a test. And I also don't believe that there will be something afterwards, after you die. I don't believe in life after death or reincarnation. First of all, reincarnation doesn't make sense, because I mean, the number of people that live on this planet keeps increasing. So therefore, the number of souls keeps increasing as well. But yeah, so this means there must be new souls. So you can't all, it's impossible for everybody to have a used soul, kind of. And what happens if the number of people on the planet starts to decline? What happens to all those leftover souls? Makes no sense. But also, I don't believe in life after death, because this means that the biological life is just one step or one position, kind of. And I mean, if you believe that we continue to exist after we die, or that our soul continues to exist after we die, the same thing has to apply to animals as well. It has to apply to every living thing. And I don't know if I should believe that. But I don't think that life is just a test to figure out whether or not you are a good person. I mean, it would be a totally unfair test anyway. It's not that everybody grows up under the same conditions. You know, some people are being oppressed, some people are sick, some people are poor. And, you know, what about those people that die after they are being born? What about the people that die at birth? You know, it's kind of pointless. Some people die at the age of 10, so their test is over, but some people get to live until they are 90, so their test is a lot longer. It makes no sense. Um, so but I don't think, here's the paradox. People always say that if there isn't anything that comes afterwards, if death would really be the end and there wouldn't be any meaning to life, this means that life is meaningless and pointless, and this would be very sad. But here's the thing, because you only live this one time and because death is the end, this is what makes life such a precious thing. And this is why you should use every second of it to enjoy it. And I really believe, yes, life is pointless in a way that it doesn't serve a greater purpose and there is nothing that comes afterwards. But because life is pointless, it's our job as intelligent living things to give life meaning, to make life meaningful. And the only thing that makes sense is if we make life worth living for us and for everything and everybody else. So we can give life meaning by making life as enjoyable as possible so that we can make life worth living. Who cares about what happens at the end? Care about the here and now and try to make the best of it. That's what I believe in. Another thing, if you think that life is just a test to figure out whether or not you are a good person, why do we have courts and punishments and prisons and stuff like this? Doesn't make sense if you believe in some kind of a judgment after those people die. I mean, it's God's job to punish people, right? I mean, why are we punishing people now when we know that they are being punished after they die anyway? Doesn't really make sense, because this means that those people are being punished twice, one time by us and then another time after they die. Sounds kind of a little bit unfair. So yeah, I already talked too much about various different things. And I didn't even talk about Cohen's co-worker who never remembers Cohen's name. And I also haven't talked about Bainsley and the shrink ROM and things like that. But yeah, you should definitely watch this movie because it's a really good movie and a lot better than most people give it credit for. I mean, this movie only has a rating of 6.0 on IMDb, which is kind of surprising for me. And yeah, another interesting thing about this movie is, although it's a movie from 2013, it's shot on 35mm film, so it's shot with analog cameras instead of digital cameras. And another interesting thing is that they wanted to shoot this film in London, UK, but this would have cost something like $20 million. So instead they shot this movie in Romania, in Bucharest, and therefore the movie did only cost something like $8.5 million. So yeah, they saved a lot of money. So yeah, that's it. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was informative. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next video. Bye.